Our first topic will be open core and open source. So maybe some of you don't know about that, but Odoo, and it's pretty unique for the industry, is completely open source. So the framework that we're going to discuss about today is fully open source. You can use it as a framework to do development without using any of our own apps. So it's also great for you to implement your own feature. People use it like that. This is what we call the community edition, fully open source, contains the framework. We also have an enterprise edition, which is proprietary of Odoo. And that's the one that we use so that one that we use on our server and that for which you would pay the subscription. But that's not all. So on Odoo, you can also have custom development that you can do using the same technologies as Odoo. So being open source, you can use exactly the same tools as we use, and you can see those tools for yourself and use them. So first topic that we will have here is open source. What do you think of it, and maybe also how it is impacting your day-to-day work with Odoo?
Yeah, okay. So for the open source, I think Odoo is the one, is the only one ERP that have open source. I think, So just let's imagine with the open source, if you are a developer, let's imagine that you can just download the file, and you can see all the codes, how the Odoo works in there, just easily to use, And I have an experience before other than Odoo, other ERP like maybe SAP and etc. And it's not that simple to see the codes and how to use it, And I have an experience like I also a technical before, and I use Java before, and then I think it's been 3 years. I'm not do the codes. I don't do the development. And then when I start to know Odoo, I think it's just like several days. I download the file and I see the source code. I can understand that easily, and that's really amazing.
So what about you, Randy? Do you have like some comments, maybe some personal experience?
Yeah. So at the beginning, it's like I also learned Odoo since college as a college project, and at that time, it's learning about Odoo just by reading the code is very easy because the code is written very well, and there is a lot of comments inside to tell you exactly what the developer thinks. So I think this kind of point in Odoo is very, very good because the developer does not only makes the product, but also helps the to-be developer to easily learn Odoo. And you must know about the App Store, but maybe some of the guests here do not know about the App Store, but because of the open source in Odoo, Odoo has an App Store, like in Android you have your Play Store, in Apple you have like your App Store. So there is a lot of people making their modules and then uploading it to the App Store, and then people can just buy the module, use it in your system, plug and play, mostly. Maybe not everything, but mostly plug and play. But the interesting thing is not only the usability, but you can learn the way to write the code. And you learn how to then optimize it or change it again according to your needs. So
yeah, definitely.
This is the very, very powerful things.
Yeah. I think you're being a bit too nice though with the codes, because I've seen a lot of code that is not commented. So definitely in Odoo, I think it's one of the greatest points is you have all these database, all these modules that are available. A lot of them are open source, but you also have the core of Odoo that is open source. So you can see exactly what one feature is doing. If you see one field, you don't know what it is, you can look at the code, understand, and that's great when working in our kind of company also, because we have, for instance, functional people who don't know about development. They would come to us, ask, what is this? How does it work? I don't understand. We can look at the code and give them the exact answer about how it's working. And then we'll see later on maybe some other good point about that. So a bit about the tech stack of Odoo. We've been talking about Odoo, but maybe some of you wonder about it. So we have a multi-tier layer application. The presentation tier, so all the interface is done via JavaScript with XML templates, and the style is in CSS. We use SCSS. For the logic, it's fully written in Python. The whole framework is in Python, and the data layer is using PostgreSQL. So it's a pretty standard stack. What is unique about Odoo is that every framework, every part of this application, except SQL, is fully custom. The framework is completely custom, made by Odoo, owned by Odoo, and modified by Odoo. When we need a new feature, when we have things that are slow, we are not dependent on other people to fix that. We can fix it ourselves and have the framework be modeled. We mainly do development, I think it's the same for you, right? In the logic tier, using Python. JavaScript is more for the presentation, which Odoo handles by default, so we never really do JavaScript development until we use some specific applications, like the point of sale, which is a front-end application that has its own database in the front end. Sometimes we do JavaScript, but here we're mainly going to talk about Python when we relate to you about our experience. So where does it start to do development in Odoo? It's what we call the Odoo module. These modules are using an MVC architecture, and they can override each other. So modules depend of each other, and they can override the behavior of each other. In the community or the enterprise layer, there is many modules that Odoo developed, and you can write your own module to change the behavior of these. You can see how people made the modules because the code is open source, and you can write your own to change its behavior. The framework in itself, to understand the framework, you have to understand what's the philosophy behind Odoo. So Odoo is a software suite of integrated application. That means that you can install the modules that you need, and that it's open to third-party modules. That's the philosophy behind Odoo, very concise. And it's a multi-tenant web application server. More on that later. So knowing those constraints, we had to make an in-house developed framework, which has an ORM library. Obviously, we don't want people to write SQL. We want it to be fast to develop with Odoo. That's really the mentality behind the framework also, and a key feature about it. We want it to be secure by design, out of the box. You don't have to think about security with every feature that you develop. And it's optimized in a similar way, whatever you're doing. If you're using the ORM, the optimization will be consistent. So you can know if you have a performance issue, you have a set of tools for you to optimize it also. And finally, it's fast and easy to use. So we'll talk a bit about that, but there is a lot of abstractions in Odoo, and it might be at a cost for a little bit of performance, but it's the real philosophy behind it is to develop feature fast. Your customer will want to have feature be developed as fast as possible, and that's why we have this framework. So it's also an application framework and an HTTP framework. We have a website module. You can write controller endpoints. So it's really a full framework. And as you said, Randy, there is actually people that are using only this framework, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like they use the community module and they just develop about it using a framework.
Yes, there's a lot of people doing that for sure. Yeah.
So you can even use it for that, not using any apps. So to come back to the technical reason for this, The server, as I said, is multi-tenant and multi-module. So what it means is that one server can process several instances. An instance is a database. So you can have one server and multiple customers. They will each be able to install their own module on their database, have their own data, their own models, their own view even. So in the database, you can customize the models and views so that you have your own Odoo experience in a way. And you can have that in the same server. So one server, multiple database. So multi-tenant and multi-module, which is really a unique design. And to achieve this design, we couldn't go for a Django or some framework that already exists. We had to go for a custom framework that we developed. Now we can talk maybe a little bit about the implementation in Odoo. So understanding a little bit more about this framework, for you guys, what is it to like implement with Odoo? Why do you actually do it? Like, why are you not using some other technologies? Why did you choose to use Odoo?
So before we go into this topic, it's quite heavy in the tech stack. Obviously, you know about it, but maybe the guys is quite confused about it. But I have a bit of confession to make.
Yeah.
So you know, I've been working with Odoo quite long. I've making like hundreds of Odoo modules, both in Python, XML, JavaScript. I make a lot, from just like a simple adding of logic, views, even to make a widget. I've done it, everything in Odoo. But if I'm being honest, I do not know how to make a Python code. I mean like a Python apps from scratch. Like, I know nothing of that. With JavaScript, it's quite a popular language, but I cannot do that also. So if I need to make a JavaScript apps from scratch, I do not know, even if I already make hundreds of Odoo modules. So that's the thing to learn about Odoo. So it's a bit related what the implementation speed in Odoo, because you don't need to know in details about Python, how to make your Python like secure, how to make your Python works fast, efficient, something like that, because the ORM is something like the framework of Odoo, already handle all of it. So you just need to know a bit about how to make a class, how to define a field, a button, a function, and there you go. I mean, like you have your table, you have your function behind. So same with the JavaScript. I mean, like in JavaScript, Odoo now doing a lot of the JavaScript framework with
we actually have a new framework for Odoo for JavaScript.
Yeah.
It's called OWL. So it was released this year for Odoo 16. All the front end has been completely revamped with a new framework. So yeah, I don't think you have had the pleasure to use it yet.
Yes, because it's a bit new,
Yeah.
and now I slow down a bit on the technical side,
Yeah.
but it's a very useful things to learn also if you want to modify a bit on your front end. Yeah. So yeah, with that, I think with all the ORM, with all the framework, it really very easy for people to start learning Odoo, and also it's very fast to develop new things.
Cool. Maybe you can talk to us a bit about your experience. So you've been developing for a bit less time, right, than Randy Archer. So on your side, like, what was the speed at which you got independent using Odoo?
Okay, so for my experience using Odoo, I think that's one point that Randy forgot to mention. It's about the database. Yeah, the database also, you don't need to know how to query or something like that, because Odoo already bundle it with many functions, many shortcut functions, and you can just easily use it like the search, the search function, the how to query in an easy way. Yeah, even you don't need to open the PostgreSQL, and you just can search it in using the Python code. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the thing to remember about implementation in Odoo is that it's quite fast to implement, and the strength for that, I would say, is really that if you have one person who is knowledgeable about Odoo, Python, is knowledgeable about development in general, who can lead a technical team, he will be able to hire people very easily to train them on Odoo, because he doesn't need someone who knows like Python in a lot of details or JavaScript in a lot of details. He needs someone who knows development, logic, who has a logical mind. So instead of focusing on really tech knowledge, you focus more on person who have logic and no programmation. I know, Randy, so in your case, you handle a bit like hiring, I would say. So how is like hiring process for you? Is it something that is very difficult to find someone who knows Odoo, or someone who is able to learn about Odoo and be good?
Okay, so it's a very good question and very good explanation about the hiring, because on my side, I never ask people like, do you know Odoo and can you code in Odoo? What I want the people to work with is just, you know logic, you can solve some logical question, you know basic stuff in coding like looping, conditional, and some simple syntax, and you are good to go. Even if you do not know Python, it's very fine, because as I said, the Python is not the key. It's the framework is the one you need to learn.
Yeah. So Arthur, were you interviewed by Randy?
Yes.
How was it? How was your interview for application at an Odoo partner?
Yeah. And when I'm being interviewed, I even don't know Python, and I have no clue Python.
Still got the job.
Yeah, but after I 1 week learn Odoo in Falinwa, I know everything. Python. It's really easy.
Yeah, Python is an easy language. I wouldn't say the same about JavaScript. I don't know your opinion, but JavaScript is a bit more tricky. But Python and Odoo, I think if you have a mentor, someone who can, who is able to know what is important in a development environment, hiring people and getting people up to speed with Odoo, if they have logic in mind, it's really easy. I don't want to downplay it, obviously, but that's the general feeling. Yeah, it's much more easier. And then, other points: safe and easy with the ORM, which helps a lot for this ease of use. The Odoo code base being available, instead of asking you a question or looking into the documentation. So usually a newbie, they will look into the doc, or they will look into the look into documentation. If they don't find the answer, they come to you. In Odoo, you can tell people, look into the code, because they can see everything in the code. So that's also a nice way if you have people who can learn by themselves. With Odoo, they can go very far. And then everything can be customized. That's something that we didn't talk on too much, but how do you cope with that? The fact that everything is customizable?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do you say no to customer when you need to?
It comes from experience, actually, because I experienced a lot of customers. We start with a very heavy development project, like Odoo as the framework, and then we try to customize everything. It works, actually. I will not say that it does not work, because Odoo as the framework is also good. But going forward, it's not really sustainable to do it, because Odoo itself offers you a lot of services. I mean, like, they offer you a free migration of your databases. They offer you a lot of features in the new version. So if you make a very heavy development, you will be, we call it technical debt. So you will have problem to migrate all your modules, because most of the modules will not be applicable in the new version. Some of it, yes, but not all.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes you have a happy ending.
Yeah, but not every time. So that's why it really we need to know that going as standard as possible, doing the walk around inside the Odoo standard is the best way. And only if it is really necessary and you have the budget for it, you go with the development. So this is the experience I have.
Yeah, I would say it's possible to customize everything, but that's not because it's possible that you should do it. As an advice, the technical debt can come very fast because it's very easy to change things. So you want to change everything because the customer asks you to, or not the best idea all the time. So now we can talk a bit about some specific feature of Odoo that allows us for this ease of customization. So we have model and view extension. This means that in the code of Odoo, every model and every view that is made can be extended via code, via a new module. You can inherit anything, and you can add fields, add methods, change the behavior, modify the fields, anything, you can do it, and it's the default behavior of Odoo. You are not monkey patching functions or anything like that, modifying the source code. You are really doing a proper module to inherit and extend features. In those specific features, we have one that is very, very useful is the computed fields. Other framework have it. Odoo has it also in a very unique way. I'll talk a bit about that. Then I asked Randy and Arthur what were one of the features that they like about Odoo. And they got me the name get and name search and also the mix-ins. So we're going to quickly talk about those. On my side, and that's one of the only code you will see for this presentation, this talk, this is a compute field. So you can see, if you know a bit about Python and programmation, that it inherits, as you can see on the second line, the model foo. And so this means foo already exists in the code base. We are adding new fields to it, new behavior. It's actually very simple to do that in Odoo. You just define a class, add the inherit keywords, and we add two fields, partner ID and importance. Partner ID is a relation to the REST partner model. So REST partner will now be linked to foo, and one partner can be linked to one foo. And we have another field, important, which is a compute field. So it has below a compute method, which will compute its value. And in this case, it depends on the partner, the field website located on the partner. So we are actually injecting a dependency between the foo model and the REST partner model. This means that whenever the website field on the partner will change, automatically the ORM will trigger a recomputation of all the important fields on the model foo if they are linked to that partner on which the website field was modified. So if you think about that, it's actually a dependency between those two models that was added via just this few code. And what it will do is that whenever this field is modified, the value of important is recomputed. You cannot do that in any other framework that I know of in Python. If you want to do that, you have to override, let's say, the create, what is creating the record or what is modifying the record, or you would have to add a lot of code in partner and not in the foo model where you added the field and where you can easily find all the logic behind this field. You would have to go to other models to understand the logic. So one really cool feature that I actually miss when I sometimes go to other framework, the compute method is really convenient. And in a place like an ERP, where you have a lot of computation everywhere, being able to just do a couple of lines of code and have one field that is completely integrated with the rest of your application, at the dependency of whenever something else changes, your field will be recomputed, guaranteed by the ORM of Odoo. You don't have to think about edge cases, they are covered. This is really, really powerful and one of my favorite features of Odoo for sure. Now it was Randy or Arthur who wanted to talk about NameGet. Arthur?
It's me.
Okay.
Okay, so actually this function NameGet is really quite useful, yeah, in many of our clients, yeah. So I assume that everyone already know Odoo, yeah, already have experience in Odoo features like sales and purchase. So when you go to the sales, when you make sales, and you try to type a product in the detail of the sales, yeah, you will see the suggestion list in the drop-down list below, yeah. That's how the NameGet works when you try to type a product, like example, yeah. And using this NameGet function, yeah, you can easily modify this. You can just easily override it and use your own logic, yeah. Maybe you want to concate it with internal reference product or the SKU number and the name of the product, yeah, you can use this function, and this quite useful in our many clients. Yeah, this how the NameGet works in Odoo. And then after you set up the NameGet, yeah, you can also modify the name search. Yeah, so the name search is when you type the product in the sales. Yeah, that's how the suggestion logic works. Yeah, that's how the name search function works. Yeah, so you can modify how the name search function works. Like I want the search is using the field reference, product reference, and the product name, and maybe using like the anything in product fields. Yeah, you can just easily modify it, and when you search the product, yeah, you can have the valid value given in the when you type the product. Yeah, that's really quite interesting.
Yeah, nice. And then I think Randy, we were a bit discussing about it, not too sure what to choose, and then we ended up choosing the mix-in. Okay. So maybe you can tell us like, yeah, what about this powerful feature? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know a bit about the Odoo already, you know one of the very good features in Odoo is the communication, the easy of use between the employee in your company, right? So you have your messaging, notes, and even schedule activity in all your business process. It's the very, very powerful feature in Odoo. You know, like, thanks for putting the image. It's easier for me to explain. So if you didn't know, if you see on the right side, there is a box, send message, log notes, activity. So if you are in sales and you want to speak with your teams about a quotation opportunity, you can just write messages in here, and your colleagues know about it. So we can replace the WhatsApp, we replace emails, we replace messy communication inside your company and just use Odoo. And not only messaging, you can also use the activity. Activity is more like we can put tasks, we can put a reminder, and so your colleagues remember what they need to do. So like, please call this client at 5 p.m. tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. It's a very powerful feature, and it is everywhere in your Odoo. But now, when you want to create a new apps, your developer need to, okay, but I also want to put this chatter inside because it's very powerful. I want my team to be able to work together on these new apps. So how to do in Odoo? Amazingly, it's just as simple as one line. If you see at the bottom, let's say partner is a new object. It is not, but imagine it is a new apps. You can just inherit activity mix-in, and then this messaging feature, activity feature already available for you. It's like a library of feature, and the way you put into the library is just one line of code. It's very amazing.
Yeah, and with the mix-in, you can also do it yourself, so you can have your own mix-ins, and then all your applications can have those behavior. If you are adding like a chatter that you need in every single model, make one mix-in, and then can add it everywhere, it will have the same behavior. So also one very cool feature on Odoo. But it's not everything, like there is a lot of extra other feature. We can talk about multi-company support, so you can have many companies in Odoo and have them integrated together in some way. On the fields, we have some rich types, like we can translate fields in many different languages. So if you have one company in English, one company using maybe Indonesian, you can translate into this different language. The users themselves can see those different fields in their language. We have company-dependent fields, so the value of the field will be computed differently depending on which company you are. So you can see the value for your company. For instance, the stock of your product. Let's say you want to have it company-dependent. You could do that. You could have the stock per company, and then when you switch company, automatically the field change. You don't need one field per company and then have bloating your system with a lot of information that are not useful for everybody, or doing some weird development where you would compensate for this. You can also have binaries in the file store. So this way your database stays as light as possible, and you store all the binaries, all the pictures, all the data in the file store. We have periodic and asynchronous tasks, so you can do crons in Odoo directly. And then we have one feature that is quite interesting, which is the custom model and fields and custom automated actions. So this means that you can actually put code in Odoo in the database instead of having it in your module. You can also create models and fields in the database. There is no Python behind, but Odoo, when it will load, will know that it has to use these fields. And this is the base for Studio, one of our apps to do some no-code development. So previously we discussed a bit with Arthur and Randy, and Randy has a lot of story about Studio because he's been using it a little bit too much. So why don't you tell us like a bit about your experience with Studio and yeah, what to do and not to do.
Yeah, so no-code things is like the hype at the time. So you can put more features, put more logic inside your system without codes. So when Odoo launched that in Studio, it's I'm very excited about it. I try to do a project solely with Studio, and to be honest, that's where I learned my lesson. So Studio is very good for you if you want to like add some field, add some features, modify some reports, something like that. And the power of Studio is that you are not dependent to a technical person. It's the key. So you can modify something without you need to hire a developer. But beware, because without a developer, you are only able to do like minimum things. If you try to do like very heavy development, it works actually, it still works for my clients, but it will be a bit of nightmare to maintain after. So because the code is like, this one is like in the future maybe Odoo can improve about how the Studio code is managed, but maybe that's for the future. Yeah. But for now, I suggest to use Studio, but keep it minimum, something like that.
Yeah, and also, in my experience, you don't really want to mix Studio and Python module. They don't really go well together. And if you start with Studio and you see that you will soon have to do development in Python, you want to move to Python as fast as possible, else you will have to migrate all your Studio development, all your fields made with Studio in a module in Python, which is a bit nightmarish to do. We had to do it a lot at Odoo, because in the past we made some mistakes allowing people too much development using Studio. So Studio is great. If you do only Studio, it will work. You cannot do everything with Studio. But if you want to be able to grow the database, you have to keep in mind that if people want to do a lot of development, at some point they will have to transition away from studio. You cannot do big development in studio, and you don't, I mean, you can. That's the issue, is that you can, but you don't want to. Okay, so I think we are running a bit out of time, but we can have a little chat about hosting quickly. Maybe 3 minutes on that one. So for the hosting, I think most of you know that we have 2 platforms, and then on-premise. So SaaS, it's our online platform where if you create a database on Odoo, you will get your database. Odoo SH, which is a PaaS platform where you can do CI, CD, so continuous integration development. And on-premise, where you are on your own, totally free. So between those 3 hosting, on Odoo Online you cannot do development, obviously. SH and on-premise you can do development. SH has some restrictions. Among those are the localization of the hosting, which is in Singapore, so not suitable for everybody in Indonesia, which is why a lot of people choose on-premise. I think you guys chose on-premise in the beginning a lot.
At the beginning, yes, but now we are moving like 95% of our customer to Odoo SH because I have a story before. One of my client is insisting a lot on-premise. They have the server in their office, something like that. It's okay, it's working for 1 year, and after, do you know in Jakarta there's a lot of flood.
I see.
So finally the customer tell me like, okay, my servers is broken because our office is a lot of water in my office because of the flood, and so that's the trigger for me to move all of my customer to Odoo SH. Because like you, as a partner, you do not worry about the backup of your databases. You do not worry about the performance. You do not worry about the interface of the Odoo SH because it's very, very easy to use. So that's the main trigger for me to move everything to Odoo SH.
And what about security? Like, is it more like customer, do they perceive Odoo SH as secure, or is it like something that they are a bit worried about?
Depends. So if you're talking about regulation with Indonesia government, I do not know much. But if you just want to know if it's easy for people to hack or to attack your server, I think it's quite safe. Because I think Odoo has a certification, right?
There is some certification, I think.
Yes, yes. So I think it's quite safe. In my experience, I never have a issue with performance, even with like hundreds of user branches across Indonesia. I never have any performance issue. So
that's definitely reassuring. And for on-premise, so how did you manage to move all those databases? Did you have to like upgrade a lot of them?
No. At the time, we just backup restore on Odoo SH. We still need to upgrade the Odoo because Odoo have a policy, so only 5 version, right?
Yeah, 5 version on Odoo SH.
5 version on Odoo SH, but it's also good for the partner because the goal of the partner is to let the customer use the newest version of Odoo. So I think it's an okay direction for Odoo to do that.
Okay, cool. So you would recommend people to move to Odoo SH if they can?
If they can, 100% yes.
Okay. Well, I think we'll add on presentation on that or little talk together. Now, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. It can be about anything related to development, about hosting, about upgrading code, and else we will be also later together.
Okay, thank you, Mr. I appreciate your presentation and sharing. Introduce myself, I'm Galang, I'm technical developer from Arcana. I have a question about the Odoo database. As we know, Odoo use a Postgre database where the performance is quite good, but for some case, we have the weakness for the speed of the load very large set data in the Postgre. That my question is, Odoo have a plan in the future? Odoo can compatible with other database like for Oracle DB or Microsoft SQL DB, maybe, or maybe Odoo have already that feature for the ORMs. Thank you.
Okay, I think I will answer that one. So the answer for can Odoo have other database database system than PostgreSQL? It's currently no, and it's not going to change. The reason is that PostgreSQL is open source, so that's why we use it. And I'm not aware of any like competitor to PostgreSQL that are open source. I know about there is Oracle, like the database that you could use, but it's not open source, so Odoo is not gonna implement that. So no, the answer would be no for that.
This, introduce myself. My name Rahmat from Java Group. My question about for the Odoo SH. As I know, Odoo SH is good for the CI/CD, but we cannot direct access for the connection to database because we need the connection string to database. If we create the like for data warehouse, we draw the data from our database in Odoo SH. I think it cannot from the Odoo SH. Maybe you can clarify my
Understood.
statement.
I think I understand what you mean.
And second question, like for the Odoo Studio, it's good for the fast development. But how to export and import the configuration from the Odoo Studio to another instance?
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
thank
I think Randy is our Odoo Studio expert, so maybe you can answer that.
Okay, so actually there is a function in Odoo Studio you can already use to export your customization into a module. And after you can import it onto your new databases and it will work out of the box.
So if you don't know how to do it, you can come to us later, we can show you. There is actually a button to export import studio customization. And yeah, you can import and export it to any database. That being said, if you already have studio development and you import from another database some other studio development, there might be some conflict. But yeah, it's possible, and we can show you if you don't know like exactly where it is. For the question about Odoo SH, so currently you cannot access with a GUI like pgadmin, for instance. You cannot access the database on Odoo SH. That's for security concerns. You cannot do it on a dedicated server because we didn't bother yet to have the technology to do that, let's say, to allow it. I know it's in the plans of the SH team. It's just like somewhere in the backlog, and at some point it will be done. I cannot tell you when because I don't work there, but I know it will be available at some point. I know that. Currently it is not, but it will be. In the meantime, what I advise customers to do is on Odoo SH, you can actually connect through SSH, and you have a folder in the home repository. In the home, you can find the daily backup. So it's not like real-time data, but you can access the daily backup, download it on another server, and then do whatever you want to do from there, have your pgadmin, have a Power BI or whatever. It's not a perfect solution, but that's the best you can do at the moment. In the future, it will be available, I think, only on dedicated server, because for security reason, you would not have that on shared server, at least in the beginning. So yeah, I hope it answers your question.
Hello, my name is Jess. So I'm interested in Odoo. Okay, my first question is about, do you mind to elaborate more, because previously that you explained about the multi-tenants and multi-modules. So I was thinking that is it a process that means that we are able to run a separate modules in a separate instance and then do the integration at once? That's my first question.
Okay, so I'm gonna like reiterate about what it is, just to re-explain it maybe. So the multi-tenancy and the multi-module, it means that you can have one server, so one physical server or virtual, whatever, on which you have many databases. and you can access those databases. So you can access these databases, but they are running on one server, and this server is running the code for all of these databases. So you can install any module that you want on any database. They can be different. You don't have to have the same structure in the database. So you can have different, so for instance, one database will have the sale module, another database can have purchase module. They don't have to have the same ones. And all these databases are run on one single server. That's all that it means in itself. So you can run multiple databases on one server. The database in them don't have like any special feature where they can interact with each other in a special way. It's just that it's very cost effective. So it's something that is very interesting for us, for our SaaS platform.
Mm-hmm.
So the SaaS platform is completely free.
I see.
And we can afford that because we run thousands of databases on one server using this multi-tenancy. So all the SaaS databases are run on the same, I mean, not the same, but a lot of them are on the same server. And that's it. It's just an Odoo server, the same as you would run for a single database.
All right. So my second questions.
Yeah.
Okay. This is last questions to you, but then I have another one questions to Falinwa.
Sure.
Okay. The second question is, at this moment, that there is about the in-memory database. So what do you think, and how about the topic of this for Odoo in the future, probably?
Can you just repeat the word that you said?
There is a topic about the in-memory database process. In-memory database.
I'm not sure I understand, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that means that in another product that they have the high and low, high and low in-memory database. It seems that there is a high process that you can do that, and because it seems that when we are using the Postgre compared to probably the Redshift is to have the features for the in-memory database. So I just want to know whether there is a topic for this in Odoo in the future.
I understand.
Yeah.
At the moment, I can say confidently that Odoo is dedicated to use PostgreSQL.
Yep.
They believe in the technology. So whatever changes that PostgreSQL will do on their database to evolve in the future will be in Odoo. So we support the different new version of PostgreSQL, but we are not gonna, at least at the moment, there is no talk about it, about supporting other models of database.
Okay.
So the database layer for the foreseeable future will be PostgreSQL.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, the last questions.
For them then.
Yeah, to Falinwa. Sorry, I take this all the questions. Most of the time, when we explained about the open source, open code to the business owners, and then sometimes that the image or the response from the business owner is negative. So negative. So based on your experience, how do you cater this activity, and then what is the key words that you are going to explain to the customers, especially to the business owners?
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe can you tell me in detail negatives? I mean, like
because most of the time when we are facing the customers and especially talking with the business owners, sometimes when they say they hear about if we are talking about the technology team, they will enthusiast about that. But then when we are talking to the business owners, there is a words about the rigids using the open source.
do you mean like the owner thinks that your code will be open publicly?
They have another imaginations for the business users instead of the open source, so they would like to have a fixed applications that are running properly. So based on your experience, that probably you face that problems, and how do you cater the situations like that? Because sometimes that when we are talking to the customers, and then that is the business owners, not the technology, not the IT team, because the IT team, for sure that they are very enthusiastic about that. But then when we are talking to the business owner, sometimes the business owner is have the informations coming from the other sources, and then they would like to think that this is not the one that they are looking for, because it's something like it's rigid, and it's difficult to find the people. So how do you cater the problem based on your experience?
For me, I just avoid to talk about the open sourceness of Odoo. Usually with the business owner, what you want to speak is about the budget, about the experience of your teams, about how you will do the projects, but we never emphasize about the open sourceness of the Odoo. Like It's difficult to convince something like that, and so yeah, just avoid it.
Yeah, I think for developer, as you said, it's a good point. But yeah, maybe for people who don't see the value in that, what they will see is, oh, everything is open. It's weird, right? Because people don't really do business like that. And same thing when we say, oh, Odoo is open source, people are wondering, but how do you make money? Like, what's happening? So yeah, it's educating the market is also what we try to do, but it's not very easy. So yeah, maybe keep that part of the talk for the tech, they will understand, and then yeah. But there is some positive about open source, especially in security, despite what people might think. We have like a lot of eyes on the codes. There is researchers across the world who are doing, I wouldn't say papers, but they are doing security research on Odoo. So there is actually a lot of people who are looking at it. And if people here are developer, you know that it's kind of proud to find some issues in others' code. So they take great pride in finding issues in our code. And you can be sure that there is a lot of very smart people who look into that.
Or can you can also show the app store of Odoo. So like find a ERP competitor that have an app store, because Odoo is open source. There's a lot of people able to create apps for you, and you can just buy it online.
Yeah, it's true that with open source you can find a lot of data about Odoo. It's very free, so a lot of people can see into it.
All right, that ends up the end of the session for today. So thank you so much, Pak Randy, Pak Arthur from Falinwa, and also Felix from the head of service.